Leo had shifted back to his human form while they had been resting, so as they headed back to the hearse, it was as 3 humans. They piled in and headed to the nearest gas station to use the payphone. They pulled into a Shell station, and luckily, the payphone was away from prying ears. Jeremiah had removed all of the dirt and blood from the 3 of them, so that they wouldn't draw any attention. Erin and Leo headed into the store and paid for gas and snacks, while Jeremiah made the call. When they left, they saw that Jeremiah was still on the phone, so Erin went over to start pumping gas, while Leo grabbed one of the bottles of Coke and took it over to Jeremiah.
Yes, the nest is gone, but there are bodies everywhere, and the dead are going to need a new home.
Leo opened the Coke for him and handed it over. Jeremiah mouthed, "Thanks," as he was listening to the Alpha on the other end of the call.
Yeah, not a problem. There's a motel across the street here, so we'll stay there tonight and meet you at the site tomorrow morning. Perfect. Thanks. See you tomorrow.
He hung up, and the sounds of the coins falling within the payphone could be heard.
It always makes me giggle that the payphones still make that sound when I used a little matter magic instead,
he said with a chuckle. He took a long drink and took the bottle cap from Leo. They walked over to Erin and he said,
He took a bit to wake up, but he will put together his people to come over and help with the cleanup and transportation of the dead. We're going to head over to that Red Roof Inn and take some rooms for the rest of the night.
The pump clicked, and Jeremiah took the pump from Erin as he was closer to the cradle. He looked down at the bags overflowing with snacks.
Nice haul. I take it that you used up a lot of energy too, Leo?
Yeah, I'm starving. Hand me a pack of Twinkies, will ya?
Jeremiah chuckled as he tossed the pack over.
You really, Erin? Snowballs?
Jeremiah shuddered at the coconut-covered monstrosity.
What? They're good. We got you your ho-hos,
Erin replied. Jeremiah let out another gross before pulling out onto the main road and then turning into the parking lot to the Red Roof Inn. After getting the keys and getting ready to enter their rooms, Jeremiah reminded them to call Uncle Jacob and Leo's parents tomorrow morning. Erin and Leo agreed and headed into their room to shower and collapse into bed. The next morning, they took turns calling home, packed up, and headed down with Jeremiah to the hearse and then to a local diner for breakfast. After they ate, they headed back to the abandoned packlands, and the Alpha from the nearby pack met them there.
All these years, and we had no idea the Muncie nest was here. I'm Alpha Lang. It's a pleasure to meet you all.
Jeremiah, Erin, and Leo each introduced themselves.
We only just arrived ourselves. Let's walk in together.
It was gruesome in the light of day. They encountered bodies almost immediately when they entered the village grounds. The 3 knew that they had not made any of these kills, so knew this was the handiwork of the wraiths. They then got to the center where Jeremiah and Leo had fought back to back. The Alpha looked around at the dead, and then at the 3 of them.
You did all of this alone? Just the 3 of you?
We also had 150 wraiths, all new moon wolves, and 1 crescent moon wolf. Once I freed the dead they had enslaved, those wraiths joined the fight,
Erin replied. The Alpha chuckled.
I can see which of these spiral dancers died by claw and gun and magic, and which died by other means. This was still an amazing fight.
He gestured to the ring of dead around where Jeremiah and Leo had fought. The Alpha began directing everyone to start collecting bodies.
Are you planning on burning or burying?
Erin asked.
We must burn. To bury would further poison the land. Their corruption spreads corruption, unfortunately, and would cause the land to begin to die.
Lang answered.
The smoke will be visible for miles, and the time it would take to burn all these bodies will have your people here for days. Erin and I can cause the bodies to deteriorate without leaching into the soil,
Jeremiah replied.
Will you be able to do it all after fighting all night?
Alpha Lang asked worriedly.
We were able to replenish our magic last night, and we have rested and eaten since. We'll just need them in one spot so that we don't have to keep casting the spells needed.
Not a problem. I want the 3 of you to rest and we'll take care of collecting all the bodies.
Lang replied. Instead of just sitting around, they did help remove the items from the homes that would cause issue if discovered by a sleeper. They were there all day, and it was the late evening by the time all the items they would have burned, as well as the bodies, were in one area. Jeremiah and Erin joined their magic, and Jeremiah led them in the spells that caused disintegration, which was a combination of death and matter arcanes. The spell took about an hour to complete, and when they were finished, it was time to go and speak with the dead. There was one new moon wolf that was there to enter into a contract with Erin, and the rest were exhumed and taken to the pack's cars to be welcomed to their pack in ceremony and reburied. The night was still young, so they headed back to Alpha Long's pack, and they witnessed the welcoming ceremony. It was a very touching ceremony, and afterward the dead were mingling, and the new to the pack were telling the rest of the events of the previous night. The energy seemed to change and become more solemn.
"How do we repay you?"
One of them asked.
I am looking for those of you who were new moon wolves in life. Your memories are needed for the new generation of new moon wolves who have lost the knowledge you still have. We will need to match you with living new moon wolves so that you can train them.
Erin replied. A new moon wolf stepped forward.
"I am the only one left here."
It's nice to meet you. Are you willing to train the new generation?
She nodded.
My cousin and I are holding on to the contracts until they can be fulfilled with the introduction to your students. I must ask you to make the contract with my cousin. We realized that having all of the contracts myself is very draining and could have killed me.
Erin explained.
"I accept. My remaining bones are this way."
After the ceremony, the bone fragments were given to the Alpha as all of the other wraiths' bones had been given to their Alphas for safekeeping. The Alphas were charged with bringing the bones to the meeting so that the hearse was not packed with bones. They stayed the rest of the night and headed out the next morning. They had already been through Canada and most of the continental United States and were headed into Mexico. Most of Central America's werewolf populations were grouped with the South American werewolves. They were near Santa Rita in the municipality of Sonora in Mexico. This was another abandoned packland. They had been to several of these abandoned packlands over the course of their journey, and almost all of them had continued to be abandoned. Most had soul eaters, and many of those with soul eaters were all that was left at the packland. They had begun checking out these packlands during the day after the incident with the spiral dancers. Leo had his window open so that he could sniff the air as they neared in case anyone had taken up residence. They were about to enter onto the trail that would take them into the pack village when Leo hissed to Jeremiah to stop.
What's wrong?
Jeremiah asked as he braked.
Vampires.
Why would vampires be here?
Erin asked.
Probably a fighting ring.
Jeremiah answered.
Should we call a nearby pack?
Erin asked.
It's daytime, we should be safe. Let's go in, see what we can see, do what we can do, and go from there.
Jeremiah answered. Both Jeremiah and Erin had close to 125 contracts each, and they were getting less and less rest. They were happy that this was one of only 2 pack lands in Mexico left, and then they would have one more pack land in Virginia to do.
We need to be aware of either other mages or ghouls.
Jeremiah began to explain.
Wait, what are ghouls? That never came up at school.
Erin replied.
Right. Would have been a freshman class.
Jeremiah sighed.
Ghouls are people that serve vampires during the day. It's usually willingly with the payoff of working towards being turned into a vampire. It used to be unwillingly before vampires became romanticized. They usually break the mind of an unwilling ghoul. Those are called Renfields after the Renfield from Bram Stoker's Dracula. It involves drinking some of the vampire's blood to create the bond. It is extremely difficult for a ghoul to live if you kill the vampire they are in service to, unless the bond is removed through necromancy. Really old ghouls can't survive removing the bond. If they are mages, they will have a weird blend of magic and vampire gifts. I'm telling you because you've never had to kill a human, and you might have to today, Erin. If we come across any humans, try to incapacitate. But if you have to end human lives, understand that they probably wouldn't have survived long after we take out any vampires that are staying on the grounds. Okay?
Okay.
she replied. She quickly handed Jeremiah his guns, and he double-checked the magazine. Jeremiah continued to dive into the pack village and parked towards the center of the village. They exited quickly, and a human walked out of one of the buildings.
Hi, how can I help you? Did you get turned around?
The man asked in Spanish. Jeremiah replied in Spanish.
No, not lost. This place is supposed to be abandoned. What are you doing here?
No, not abandoned anymore. Your information is old.
The man replied.
I'm getting 7 life signatures nearby.
Erin whispered.
Me too.
Jeremiah whispered back. Louder, he said in Spanish.
You should probably leave before our friend here gets really mad.
Leo knew that was his cue. He had on the regalia tunic, so he made a show of shifting to his half form, ensuring that all eyes would be on him, hoping his shifting would cause some of the humans to panic. There were some panicked screams, and before anyone could really react, Erin used the shadows to entrap the 7 humans.
Damn, cuz. That was quick. Do you need any help?
Erin shook her head.
Okay. Me and Leo are gonna go and talk to the humans. I'll restrain them as we go so it takes the strain off.
Okay, I think I'm at my limit and don't want to move.
She replied.
Hey everyone, hope you loved the video. Don't forget to give it a thumbs up and hit subscribe for more awesome sci-fi content. You can also support us by hitting the thanks button or becoming a channel member. Your generosity helps us bring you more stellar stories. Every bit counts. Thanks a bunch.